It seems to me our human birth involves a relationship with fundamentally crucial questions. Who am I? What is life? What is nature? What does it mean to be human? What can it mean? What can nature be? What can it be for us? What can life be for me? What can life be for my people? What can life be for the world? Why? Why are we born? Why do we live? Why do we die? What is light? What is time? What are they really? Not what do we say they are. We have ways of talking about all of these things that are wildly incomplete, yet imply an authoritative grasp on the phenomenon. When we think about what it means to be human, there are many perspectives and orientations we can take, but most of them fall into two basic species. One of them is evaluative. This kind of mind will look around for examples and get some statistical data together. Whether that's informally, just as in our everyday lives, or scientifically. And we'll then make announcements about what the norms are, right? The averages. And we'll perhaps think that to be a relatively complete grasp of the phenomenon. But then there's another species of mind that has to do with invention. There's the mind of evaluation and analysis, and there's the mind of invention that creates new ways of being and seeing and learning and understanding and relating, right? And the mind of analysis tends to easily dismiss possibility and go with what's written on the page, right? These are the numbers we got. That's the situation. And yet the mind of invention is constantly transforming, learning, developing, making new domains of possibility come to life in human experience and relation. And, it strikes me that we are all constantly subject to the produce of both kinds of minds. In our media, in our education, in our social experience, in our cultural experience, we're constantly being subject to projections about who's doing what, and what things mean, what's worth fighting for, why people are fighting. A lot of these things are debilitatingly confused, incoherent, and rather terrifying. If we were to pay attention to the popular exposure of our humanity in the media, an extremely grim picture emerges very rapidly, with not so many exceptions. One begins to wonder if there are any existing contexts in which human excellence is even possible, let alone being practiced. Of course there are, and yet it seems that in most cases these contexts struggle under the domination of the agendas of commerce and war, money, power, so that it's as if they are rodents hiding in the infrastructure, trying to get enough resources to just maintain their survival and not be crushed by opposing concerns. In our lives, there's a gravity that drags us down toward compliance with kind of the least common denominator, social, intellectual, relational, ecological, developmental status of our real or possible humanity. And if the culture that we're in is so crudely and misguidedly oriented it can be difficult for us to, as human beings, either as individuals or families, teams, communities, it can be really difficult for us to find or establish any context in which our human excellence and developmental urgency is even possible. The nature of our humanity is peculiar. It forms itself to the structures of the environment and contexts that it understands itself to be in. And so in many cases, I think we experience a number of different domains of gravity that are dragging us down toward experiences of our humanity that are, how shall we put it? They are compromises of our human potential, our will, and the incredible, the inestimable bank of assets that our evolution and our human history have endowed us with as birthrights. Little of these have we seen, for the contexts that we are commonly found in, the contexts to which we subscribe and by which we are relatively dominated, have nearly precisely the opposite purposes, agendas, and outcomes. So it's as if there's a kind of gravity, right? A kind of social gravity that's dragging us away from the discovery and embodiment of our possible humanity into ever more conflicted and poorly equipped declarations of our present status, or what we can predict, quote unquote, given our analysis. Again, we see the division between creative invention, together with and for each other in the history of life on Earth, of the potentials of our humanity, an option always available to us in any moment that we shall agree to do so, whether that be 2 of us or thousands, or commentary on the analysis, the prediction of various kinds of doom or sudden explosive progress in futures that we are apparently not making. They seem to be made for us. These two polarities can also be thought of as like things happen to us and me. Like the world is about things that happen to me. I'm a passive recipient of things that happen or are, or I make my relationship with events and possibility with opportunities. Yeah. I'm inventing the world together with the others whom I care for and love, and the living ecologies of our world. 2 different kinds of positions. Yeah. And the popular one is reactive. It's passive reactive. It's a spectator-like role for those of us who interact with most of modern media, particularly anything related to news. So there's this gravity that's just not only holding us back, it's actually dragging us down to ever lower rungs of our intellectual and developmental, relational, ecological possibility as human beings. And it's an ambient gravity. No one's necessarily doing it to you. But we might imagine it as the result of something we're not doing instead. And of course, all the things we actually do engage in, most of them reinforce that gravity. Whatever those things might be, we watch television, we buy lots of expensive objects and cars and homes and ranches and things, or we consume elaborate food, we drive cars around all the time. We become addicted to drugs or various kinds of rather absurd religious or even scientific ideas. Instead of forming anything like an intelligent culture, we're just kind of getting dragged down into these little sub-tracts of compromised, counterfeit humanity, intelligence, relation. And it's all very technological. It's all driven today by a fundamental spirit of let's make machines and relate with them ever more closely. Since I was young, our species has been reaching slowly into space. The first efforts came from World War II and were primarily aggressive. They were the efforts of war machines. But we eventually achieved escape velocity from the biospheric membrane of Earth into space. And it's a desolate, isolate, dangerous place for living animals like us. There's nothing hospitable anywhere near us. In fact, just traveling in space is extremely dangerous for us for all kinds of reasons we largely haven't even discovered yet, and for many that we're aware of. And we've always been excited about the possibility of exploring other worlds, and many people are excited about the possibility that someday our species might contact another advanced, intelligent, machine-making representational species like ourselves. And we have dreams of spaceflight, and I think these are, in general, well-founded, but there's something a bit confusing about all of that, which is that there's an urgent need to abandon, there seems to be this urgent need to abandon the world that we actually exist on, our actual home, birthplace, the only living world that we've ever known, certainly the only prodigiously thriving world in nearby space, as if we could do something better if we were given a desolate world to start with, like, for example, Mars, or even do something interesting. So there's this weird problem where we're not willing to invent the most amazing human world that we can invent here on the planet on which we've originated, in which all of our soul and the history of our people is deeply invested, and with which, and with all of the life forms that we have evolved in the most intimate relation with. Right? These are the most precious assets in the universe, the ecologies of Earth. So apparently there's some desire to think, oh, there's something really exciting beyond the envelope of space. That may be true, but we've abandoned the necessity of our role as an intelligent species here on Earth. It seems to me we need to achieve escape velocity from a very different membrane, the membrane of our culture. Yeah? That if we could achieve escape velocity from that barrier that has kept us conserving and replicating frames of mind, behavior, activity that are fundamentally deceptive, contagious, incoherent, dangerous, momentous, and drive hundreds of years of human confusion and atrocity and war, ecological devastation, personal human devastation. If we could achieve escape, if we could form a vehicle together capable of achieving escape velocity from our culture and establishing, not on other worlds, but on this world, intelligent human culture for the first time in memory, where we can learn to discover and invent our human excellence and to understand the incredible assets with which our animalian and cognitive evolution have endowed us as potentials. If we could achieve escape velocity and produce on Earth what we dream of producing in space, an entirely new way of being human, a way that is true to our nature and the possibility of our intelligence, and the incredible, and I will say divine, promise of our communal being together here on Earth with all of the life forms that have existed and all of the unborn beings that are yet to come on our world. I think the challenge is not to penetrate into space, but to penetrate into our humanity and the possibilities of our intelligence, to form a vehicle together capable of pioneering the true frontier, the one we've left unexamined while we've chased every possible mechanism, method, technique, algorithm, technology, and research target. Somehow we've developed an incredibly sophisticated overlay, but rather than endow us with contact with the true nature and potentials of our human birth and life, something like the opposite has been going on. Those are being highly inhibited, and we have to serve the processes that are inhibiting, that are doing the inhibition, for pay, for food, for shelter, for social access, for access to health care, for what is often an incredibly crude and vocational-oriented education. Our species imagines ourselves to be an intelligent animal. Yet if you look carefully at all of our activity, including much of our discussion, you will find very little evidence of this if you look from the perspective of nature, of ecologies surviving, flourishing, thriving, informing each other's evolutionary potential, magnifying that potential into the future, building the opposite of financial interest, building developmental interest on modest investments that pay off in shocking ways over small periods of time. We translated all that into a profit-oriented accounting system where we can burn that down. We can burn down evolution and ecologies to make numbers rise in bank accounts. It's as if we're all kind of on a mountain together, right? And we have a few different options. We can circle the mountain, which will at least preserve our present altitude. We can walk around in a circle, and we can try and make a little upward progress even if we're circling. Maybe occasionally we will. Or we can descend, which of course gravity's going to help you do that. Once you start descending, gravity's going to kind of keep dragging you down, and the farther you descend, you'll realize, gosh, I'd have to climb all that way just to get back to where I was already before. So once you start going down, once that gravity's pulling you down, there's a real ongoing impetus for developmental loss. Or we can grab each other's hands and ascend, and as we go up, amazing things happen. New kinds of ascent become possible. Whereas as we go down, the number of possibilities for ascent are radically limited with each fall, right? So we can kind of tumble down the mountain of our humanity, or we can together engage our volition. We can take volitional, intentional, creative action in every moment of our lives and communication with each other, and perhaps especially wherever we shall specifically agree to do so. We can invent a context, we can invent the vehicle together that can achieve escape velocity and establish a new world for our people here on this world where we actually live. That's one of the most exciting ideas that I've ever come across, and I hope that we may explore it together and learn what might be possible for our humanity, rather than deriving it from analysis and reports, from contexts that are fundamentally compromised, and sources whose actual agendas have little to do with producing insight or opportunity, and a lot to do with making declarations and selling copies and getting click-through and this kind of thing, right? So we're constantly immersed in this flow of counterfeit signals about what it is or might be to be human. And I know that we can together establish a context that's both resistant to that and produces entirely the other kind of signal, a signal toward intelligence. We can actually learn to produce a signal we ourselves can follow into the recognition and understanding of our nature as human beings, of the possibilities of our human birth, our world, our ecologies. We can produce a signal that becomes a way of travel. This isn't something we can subscribe to. We're not going to find it on offer. Books will not help us. It's something that we can experience and become only by inventing it together with and for each other. And that's my invitation to you today.